What's going on, Broncos country? Welcome to another episode of Bourbon, Broncos, and No BS. My name's Kev Dan. I got Jared here. We got Spotty here. And more importantly, we have you here, the viewers. And that's what really tonight is all about. Of course, every show we want to hear from you guys, all of your comments, all of your questions. You know, there's not really much going on in Broncos news right now, so it might be kind of boring tonight. Nothing really to talk about, but we'll figure something out. We'll work it out. So, hey guys, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. Let's get this show rolling and start talking about some Broncos. Here we go, guys. Orange Weekly, fans, brews, and Broncos news. Happy New Year, guys. How you all doing?
Oh,
Damn it, I left mine in the car.
How dare you? Broncos were nice enough to hand these all out to everyone at the game. And I'm like, hey, I got to, show it off. And we got to celebrate a little bit, 2024, new year, almost end of the season. So, I can't keep doing this, guys.
Yeah, it's so hard to look through that second number, man. You're all like this in them. You're like, I got this.
Pretty much. So, hey, guys, Jared, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Obviously, lots to talk about tonight.
For sure.
This is my last show. For those of you who don't know, it's my last show of the year. So I'm going to try to make it as eventful as possible.
I love it. Spotty, what about you, man?
Well, guys, we're sitting in January, no longer playing meaningful football games and starting to look at the draft. College football is really interesting right now, guys. There's some really interesting things going on in there. And, it's an unfortunate time right now. The Broncos being in the news for things that we shouldn't be in the news for. But hey, what 2024 is starting off real well.
Exactly.
Oh man, yeah.
And you know what? I'm sure this is what everyone wants to talk about. How you all doing, guys? Good to see you, Anthony, Gary. What's up? Shane, how you doing? Good to see you all. Glad you're here. Again, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button for us. Hit that share button. Helps us out a ton. But something in the news about Russell Wilson and getting benched. I don't know. Look, guys, there's a lot of news coming out of this. A lot of different sides to the story. It kind of depends on who you're going to believe more than the other. I don't know. It's kind of hard to make heads or tails of this whole thing. So, Jared, what are some of your initial takes on this, man?
Yeah, so I got like a lot of things going through my head, but I'm going to start with one as a Bourbon Broncos No BS, the Orange Weekly Broadcast Network. We wanted to go live that night, but we really decided we don't know enough information. And I feel like as of today, I think we have enough of the pieces to know, but we have to remember there's Russ's side, then there's Sean Payton and the Broncos side, and then there's truth somewhere in the middle. Like we have to remember that as we're going through this, and people are mad at one side or the other. Whatever, do your thing, whatever, fine. Okay, cool. But we also have to remember, this is the last piece I'll say, and then I'll throw it over to Spotty before we start this off. It's okay. Russell Wilson is a good quarterback. Sean Payton is a good offensive coach and a good head coach. Both things can be true at the same time. And when you mix oil and water, sometimes it's not okay. You can cook with oil, you could cook with water, but you don't need to be mixing them. And sometimes they mix and it doesn't work out. And you tried and it didn't work out. And there's going to be some sort of separation. And I think that's what happened here ultimately in my head. Obviously, we don't know all the facts. We're not in the locker room. We don't know that background. We have the two sides, but I am okay sitting here and not bashing Russ for playing terrible. He's still a good quarterback. When he had the ball in his hands and he was able to call his own plays, he was okay. He was doing well. When Sean Payton was scripting the plays, he was doing well. It's that middle ground that just wasn't there. And when that happens, you have a team that's sitting at 500 and missing the playoffs for the 7th year in a row.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it's like a high school breakup, right? They're people from two different cliques, and we're hearing information from other people and other things, and you're like, I don't understand where all this information is. But the funny thing is, the NFL was clued in on all of this earlier on because they sent the Broncos the letter on November 4th, right? So it's just how the information is being disseminated. It's how, that whoever takes the opportunity to manipulate the airways first to sound like the better person on it. I am with Jared on this 100%. The fact that, Russ is going to be a good quarterback, whether that be with, the Broncos next year. We can't even speculate to that still. The Broncos won't say anything, or whether that's somewhere else next year, like the Pittsburgh Steelers. My buddy wanted to hate that idea, actually. So we can't, I'm going to take all this information with a grain of salt. It 100%, if it was something that the Broncos 100% did wrong, the NFL is going to fine them for it. And if that's what's come out in the situation, then we know if the NFL fines them for it, then that we were in the wrong. And if it all goes away, it sounds like it was just, folks trying to get on the Russ train and make it seem like it was, us kind of thing. So it's one of those things I'm not going to touch, especially because we still don't know what's going to happen, whether we're paying the guy a lot of money, and it'd be almost unprecedented to release a guy and pay him $85 million over the next 2 years. But what they did in benching him is to almost stop the bleeding, right? There's another $37 million to bring it over $100 million if he gets injured in these next 2 games, which we know absolutely could happen in any one football game. We talked weeks ago about how many QB1s have actually been hurt over this entire season, and that could absolutely happen. So I think financially, whether he's with us next year or not, benching him was the best idea financially.
And I think, if you've already made the decision that you're going to move on from this guy, right, it gives you a chance to see what you have in Stidham, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But there's, a lot of other questions that are surrounding this. First off is some of the comments that were made on the Pat McAfee show. Aaron Rodgers was talking about this, and of course he has nothing else to do other than be a talking head right now. But interesting point of, is this going to affect if people, free agents want to come to Denver or not? And that, I don't know, guys. Do other players look at this and say, "Oh, wow, the Broncos are really treating their players really shitty"? Like, do I want to go deal with that, or do I want to go somewhere else? I mean, for me, the biggest thing is, what do we have to show these guys in terms of like, hey, we are becoming a winning organization. Like if you come here, you're gonna have a chance to win on the big scale. So there's just a lot of, I think, other secondary effects from this that I think might play down the line. I just don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, so on that point, I don't think that's a concern in any way, shape, or form, because the people that are mad and people that are saying that Sean Payton is running a tyranny over there are the people that were kicked off the team, really. I mean, we traded away like Frank Clark, right? Or not Frank, was it Frank Clark? Yeah. And obviously the issues, K-Jack, I love K-Jack, don't get me wrong, but he came on and said something along the same lines of the way that Sean Payton was running. But you got to remember, when you bring in someone new like Sean Payton, these aren't his people, right? These aren't the guys he drafted. He inherited a team, and he's an old school, and that, for what it's worth, we had the opposite in Nathaniel Hackett, who just let the players do whatever they wanted. And then you have a guy coming in here, be like, this is my team, you're going to do as I say, which is like that old school, kind of like Bill Belichick, old school mentality. But you're saying that to a bunch of people who have no reason to follow you other than the fact that you're their head coach. And if the players don't have that mentality, because hey, welcome to the club, new guy. Like, we've been doing this here, and Justin Simmons is on board, right? For the most part, like guys like Justin Simmons, who have been here for a long time, Garrett Bowles, who have been here for a long time. They have this new coach coming in and be like, dude, you're the sixth coach that I've had. Like, what am I supposed to do listening to you? And that's what those other guys, especially Frank Clark, who we picked up in the offseason, some of these other guys that are, I do feel like K-Jack, I think, is the one that I kind of listen to the most, because he has been with the team for quite a bit. However, again, it's not his guy. So as far as coming to Denver, if you're a Sean Payton guy, if Sean Payton's going out and getting you and telling you like, hey, I want you to be my guy, then there's no reason that somebody wouldn't go. Right? Because then he's building his team as opposed to building a team that wasn't his.
Yeah. What you have to remember, Sean Payton comes from Bill Parcells' coaching tree. So anybody knows the history, Bill Belichick also comes from the Bill Parcells coaching tree.
Yep.
He is a tough-nosed, I may yell at you to get you to succeed. He's not going to be your Mike McDaniels or Mike Shanahan or Sean McVay. They're not going to, invite you over to their penthouse home that oversees the beach and serve you Mai Tais. That's not exactly his style. I agree with Jared in the fact that I agree with Jared with the fact that I don't think it's going to affect free agency, mostly because what we have found from free agents is that it's less about, the team and maybe the atmosphere, but a lot of guys follow the coaches or the coaches of coaches that they've had, right? That we brought in some of Sean Payton's guys. They followed Sean Payton to Denver, not knowing what their role was going to be. Zach Allen followed DJ to the Broncos, not really knowing how the defense was going to be. A lot of those guys are going to follow players like that, or like coaches that, are in similar areas. And then, it's not like when Peyton was here, right? It was a singular player. It wasn't the Broncos organization that brought in DeMarcus Ware and Aqib Talib and all that. It was Peyton Manning that brought in those people too. So it was almost kind of a similar situation. They were following a man, not an organization. So I don't really think we're going to truly have an effect out there.
For sure. Yeah, Paul. And Paul was is one of our UK viewers. So first off, thank you for tuning in as always. He got to watch the game, unfortunately, from the one of the, I think he said, owner's box of the Chargers. Yeah, something like that. He got some real nice seats. The only thing is he couldn't wear anything Broncos, obviously, with them. So, but it sounds like he had a really good time. Paul, glad you're here as always, man, and love to hear more about your day over at Mile High. If you guys are looking for a drink of choice to kick back, relax, and enjoy the show too, Bourbon Broncos No BS. Get some good bourbon, right? That Breckenridge Brewery Champions Blend, Broncos Champions Blend, is always a great addition to the show, or just any night as well. And for next season, when next season does come back and there's more home games, don't forget that they do have a nice little booth set up near the south part of the stadium there, so you can go get some free shots of that Breckenridge Brewery Champions Blend. So those guys are fantastic. Well, let's go to this question, because it kind of does tie into the controversy here of what we're looking at. And Spotty with the stats, I'm gonna have to get smart on college quarterbacks, because to be honest, I haven't looked at any of them yet. But there's options. I mean, do we go out there? Do we try to trade for someone to get a veteran of at least some caliber? Do we go out and get someone to maybe start right away, or sit behind Stidham and use Stidham as the bridge quarterback? I mean, what are you guys thinking of right now?
So let me say this, and I'm going to throw it to Spotty, just real quick. And this is something that we talked about in our chat, so I'm going to just put it out there. New general manager, new head coach, new owners. We've been terrible at developing quarterbacks for the past since Elway. Right? So ever. And so we finally have a new regime to go out and try again to get that young quarterback. And from what I'm looking at, I mean, I watched that Washington, Texas game, and Joe Penix, what's his first name? I forget his.
Yeah, Penix Jr.
Penix Jr. was playing lights out, and he was accurate, and he was getting out of the pocket. He was doing very well, and he's supposed to slide to almost the second round. So how deep I'm looking at all these quarterback rankings, right, online, and reading as much as I can. Spotty, you know all about this. How deep is that quarterback room? And at 15 or 16, wherever we end up, are we going to be able to get the guy that we can develop into the future franchise?
So one comment I want to make, just to get what Kevin was saying, I think we're going to see it again in the Raiders game, and we saw in the Chargers game. I don't believe Jared Stidham is the answer unless we want to get a higher draft pick next year. I think Jared and I can both agree on that. Then here, in all honesty, so you have, in this particular year, the top two quarterbacks are talked about, and and they only talk about the top two. That's how they do every year, right? Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, all the other previous years like that. This year's number one and number two are Caleb Williams and Drake May, who's from the University of North Carolina. Not a lot of folks talk about it. Yes, Caleb he might be sliding in the possibility that there's a lot of teams who are afraid of some of his diva mentality. I don't think that we really truly try to give a try to drafting quarterbacks. And a buddy of mine was like, the Broncos should just draft a quarterback every year until kind of one works out, right? I don't like that draft philosophy. The last time that we drafted somebody in the first round was the Pirate Paxton Lynch. Okay.
Yeah.
So I even all of the draft analysts at that time were like, John Elway had no other choice but to go after him, who probably would have fallen and they would have had this other situation. I think that the way that the college football is currently working, the true blue chip and the first round caliber quarterbacks have changed. It's no longer these, hey, they run a spread offense, they run an air raid, they run this, they run that. They're not really ready for the pros anymore. A lot of these guys' coaches are pro coaches. I mean, not Bill Belichick. Bill O'Brien came from came from Alabama, and you saw some of those guys that he worked with. Cliff Kingsbury was a coach in the NFL. He worked with Mayfield and Murray and and of course Hurts. So from the spot that the Broncos are currently in right now, and I think we're going to draft 14 if the season were to end today. I think that we have the ability, if that second half, 4 through 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks, I think the only 3 that we're not going to have a chance at are Caleb, May, and the Heisman winner, Jaden Daniels, who I would want.
Which means McCarthy is still on the board. Penix is still on the board. Both those guys, I'd absolutely love to have. I mean, after watching the last 2 games yesterday, both those guys, and I like McCarthy a lot. He's a pocket quarterback. He played very well, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
And he runs a pro offense. When you get a Harbaugh, that's a pro style offense.
Sure is.
So,
what do you think about
Bo Nix is in there too?
The hard part about Bo Nix is the style of offense that the University of Oregon runs, right? And it could just be one of those things, right? These guys who come from the most non-traditional style offenses are the ones that tend to struggle in the NFL. If we're under the assumption that Sean Payton is going to be the head coach of the Broncos next year, I don't think that's in any arguments for anybody. He wants somebody who's taking snaps from under center. And Bo in that Oregon offense is a run and gun kind of offense, and it doesn't really fit our style. And he's a little older than all the other prospects are. He actually started his first college career game. He played against Justin Herbert. And that was like 5 years ago. So yeah, exactly. His first college game was against Justin Herbert. So he's an older guy. But all these guys are 20, 23. They're all a little experienced group.
Sure. Well, look, there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be talking about, when we get into the off season. For everybody watching, remember, we may be quiet during the off season, but when it gets to free agency, when it gets to the draft, we do a ton of shows. We do a podcast. We push out content for you guys. So make sure when it gets to that time of the off season, you guys are checking back in with us so you can hear all of our latest deep dives and what we're expecting. We're also going to be doing, for the first time in a couple of years now, a live draft show during the first round up until the Broncos pick. So none of this day 2, second round. Oh, yeah. It's
man.
fun, man.
I'm real drunk during drafts.
That's fine.
So is everybody.
What do you think we're doing? You think we're sitting here just like drinking water? Like, come on. No. So it's a little longer, of course, but we take breaks. So it's okay, Spotty. You'll be good.
Cool.
It's better than our original. Our original idea last year, when we didn't have a first round pick, was to just stay on all night and do a 24-hour and see what happens when we finally got our pick, just in case we traded up or something.
I kept saying we should do that, and all of you guys were like, "No, I want to go to bed," and all that stuff. So I don't know.
Take care of my kid.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Shane, I saw your comment earlier. It really does suck to have a breakup with Russell Wilson. I think we were all really excited to have a quarterback where we knew that we were going to have that guy for at least, several years, not just 2 or less than 2, before we had to start really worrying about going back through a quarterback battle. So that's going to be interesting to see. We're kind of back in that bucket. Thankfully, like we're saying, Sean Payton isn't going anywhere. So Juan, asked this question earlier. How you doing, buddy? If we see any staff changes coming up, and I think the only one I can really think of is George Paton. But I don't think anyone on the coaching staff, unless they get hired and picked up by someone else, is really going to get fired or canned for that matter.
George Paton doesn't stand a chance. We got to say that, right? There's no chance.
Yeah. I don't see him surviving this at all.
We talk about it. New regime. You mentioned it. So new regime. That's new ownership, new head coach, old GM. Kind of doesn't. It does.
It doesn't. You're right. It doesn't.
He doesn't.
It just doesn't.
Doesn't mesh. I think that's what he's going for. It doesn't mesh. It's
exactly.
It's not exactly what you need to. But I'll finish that for him. I think George Paton is under, and not for nothing. I think it really depends on. And again, none of us are in that front office. I would love to have Jeff back on. Maybe he can give us some insight on this. And I don't know if he will, because he's been doing this for a long time. And he might not open up about this. But ultimately, it's that relationship between Sean Payton and the Walton Group, right? Because whatever that Walton Group got Sean Payton in there. I don't think it was George Paton that got Sean in there. So if the Walton Group is closer with Sean Payton and they're like, you're going to run this team, you're going to get the guys you need. And what's that relationship with George Paton? What that relationship looks like is going to change a lot of things. Because if that relationship is good and Walton's like, okay, you guys are on the same page, I'm okay with that, kind of erasing the last, I don't know, however many years of drafts that we've had. I mean, outside of like Pat Surtain and a couple guys here and there, he's completely hit on. And Javonte Williams, moving up for Javonte Williams was a huge, big move for us, and that worked out well. But overall, yeah, George Paton, it's that ownership group relationship that we are not privy to, and I don't think really anybody outside of those two are privy to understanding. And Sean Payton. And if Sean Payton's going to go in there and he's going to run this team, he's going to run this draft. He's going to get all of the recruiting stats, and he's going to sit down with all the recruiters and all the draft guys and look at everything together with George Paton, and he's going to call the shots. And if there's some sort of friction there, then George Payton's gone. And if not, then I wouldn't be surprised if George Paton sticks around to be able to try to work with this at least for another year and see what we can do in this draft.
Yeah, I think that, I wonder how much this Russell Wilson is going to, have an effect on that. I would say that if there has to be a fall guy, it would be George Paton, So yeah. I don't know if that's going to have any impact on what happens there.
Well, let's talk about this. What?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I mean, obviously the Russ trade, I feel like it's just like a series of unfortunate events for the Broncos. And do you really blame? I mean, everyone wants to blame somebody for the fact that we haven't made the playoffs in 7 years, right? And that's just the easy answer. But are we blaming the guy for situationally, year by year, making decisions that were for the best for the team at that time? Now, pulling it all together, again, I don't think George Paton got Sean Payton. I think the Walton Group got Sean Payton.
Sure.
Right? And I agree. With that being said, the decisions that he made up to that point were at the time, like, we thought the Russ signing was the best thing since sliced bread for the Broncos. And it obviously didn't work out, but is it really his fault that he thought the same thing that everyone and their mom thought when we went out and got him was the right thing to do? So ultimately, I wouldn't be surprised if we see this play through with, they both have the exact same mentality, which is we want to build a winning organization, and how do we win? How do we build that the best? And if they can do that and work together on that, then I don't see it happening. And do we need a fall guy at this point? If you take it snippet by snippet, everybody wants to blame somebody, but just snippet by snippet, he's making the best decisions that he feels like was right for the Broncos.
Yeah. I agree, man.
I'm glad I got to say that while Spotty was off, because I don't think he understood. I don't think he heard me trying to back up George Paton and saying that he's going to be here for another year.
I don't see it wrong with that, with George Paton being here for another year. I think the issues, how about this? John Elway did a worse job at being a GM than Paton, right? And so the Russell contract, a lot of people that's what they're going to point to is the biggest issue with George Paton. And it's not even the worst contract in the NFL. Okay. And Right now, I think even going into next season, he's only going to be the 5th highest paid quarterback in the league. We are in a quarterback driven league. You have to dish out the cash to get the possibility of winning. Okay. There's really only 2 ways to do this. And we found this out over the last couple of Super Bowls, right? You have the best quarterback in the league and you pay him his money, and then you find cheaper options around him, or you draft a quarterback that either is the best thing since sliced bread coming out of the draft, and you spend all your money on all the other pieces, or you find a quarterback a la the 49ers, which don't even want to get into that, who just does enough in your system to win you games, and then you literally have every other highest paid player at the position. So honestly, George Paton, sorry, he really didn't do that bad of a job. Matter of fact, Deshaun Watson's contract, you guys should look that up, way worse than Russell's. The Browns are absolutely screwed when it comes to that. So, but other than that, what are we talking about drafting? Jonathan Cooper, McLaughlin, Nick Bonito. I could point out a lot of players that they're not, okay, maybe some of them aren't as healthy, but Pat Surtain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes, too. That's what I was saying too. Like, if you take the snippet by snippet, George Paton did what he thought was best for the Broncos. And in hindsight's obviously 2020 with the Russell Wilson trade. I get it. And honestly, we all talked about it when it happened and we signed him before he took his first snap. Everybody was on the same page. I guarantee that was part of the trade clause. That was part of getting him in the first place. Was we are going to sign you to this deal if you come play for the Broncos. And that's what happened. And we signed him to the deal. And however money that we're going to be out because of this situation, it didn't work out, which happens. But pointing the finger at George Paton and saying, oh, yeah, he's a terrible general manager, he's a terrible guy because he did this thing, I feel like is a little overstep.
Yep. I agree.
What do we have to compare to him anyways? In the last 15 years for the Broncos, we have literal full draft classes that weren't on the team 3
You're
years.
just wiped out.
Right.
Yep.
And right now we set some of the most, we've got undrafted and late round guys that are even on the freaking team. And
yeah,
I mean, honestly,
playing well.
That.
Yeah. And again, all the guys, it's all comes down to this Sean Payton thing. All of this revolves around the Sean Payton thing. He got the guys like Frank Clark. He got the guys like Russell Wilson, knowing that they're playmakers and they can do it. And then they didn't mix well with the Sean Payton philosophy, which again, I don't think was George Payton's choice. Right. And that's why we get rid of these guys. The McLaughlin trade obviously didn't work out very well. He's playing okay and injured. Or not McLaughlin, McGlinchey.
Chubb.
McGlinchey. The McGlinchey situation, and you could talk about that for a little bit if you want. Obviously, another right tackle, in his first year here, kind of bust, I'd say. But he went out and got one of the top right tackles in the league. I think he was the second ranked right tackle in that free agency class, and he got out and got it because we had an issue there. So he was trying to make the best decision. What it ended up being on the field, can we really play it to? I don't know. I don't know. I want to defend George Paton a little bit in that aspect, and I think that they give him at least another year to work with Sean Payton to see how this free agency and this draft turns out.
I disagree with you that they're going to give him the chance, and that's again that's Sean Payton. Sean Payton didn't sign his contract to come to the Broncos if he wasn't going to have his say, which I'm not really a big fan of. Mostly because that's that Bill Belichick type thing, and we just thought that he was an absolute genius, but we found out over the last 4 or 5 years that he's just an old man.
But I mean, but say George Paton and Sean Payton sit in the same room together, and they're like, all right, we're on the same page. If that happens, that might happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Walton Group looks at that and be like, all right, you do your thing, and let's see how this plays out.
For sure. I would agree with that. I mean, I think if it comes down to Sean Payton just saying, no, I just don't see how this is going to work out, I think that might be another, huge factor in how they move forward. So, I think Sean Payton has the cards in his hands and kind of controls George Payton's fate in that regard. Again, if he says, I can't work with this guy, he's not going to, do the things that I need him to do or whatever, then that's probably something they're going to take into consideration. So, hey, let's move on, guys. I know there's a lot of talk here. And of course, as the offseason unfolds, we're going to be talking a whole lot more about it as well. But there was some football play last weekend. It wasn't necessarily pretty football, but the Broncos came away with a win, sweeping the Chargers yet again. At least we can do that to one AFC West team. And yeah, I mean, so what are some of your guys' big takes? Obviously, the big talk is all around Jarrett Stidham and how he did, but what else did you guys, see from the game, and what were some of your takeaways, Jared, man?
I'll start with this defense. Let's just get this out of the way. Defense played phenomenal. Really kind of let up a little bit here and there, but that bend don't break mentality really worked out for us. A couple missed field goals obviously helped us out. Obviously, we missed one too. But in general, I think our defense played exactly what they needed to play to beat that team. I wish we could have got a little bit more pressure on Easton Stick. We had an opportunity to get a little more pressure, and we didn't get there, but that's fine. It worked out well for us. And then we'll get to the Jarrett Stidham talk a little bit later. Spotty.
Special teams, defense. I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about it when Easton Stick is playing. Allen wasn't playing. Mike Williams, Joshua Palmer. I mean, go on and on and on. It's hard because I'm not real. There feels like there's been a slight regression in our defense. And that's probably mostly because of the fact that we've just been absolutely torched, out of the last couple of weeks. So it's hard to really pinpoint what's what and all that. But I'll give it to the Broncos, man. This year they did it without a premier pass rusher. They did it with really just Pat Surtain on the cornerback side. I love McMillan and I like Moreau, but over the last 3 or 4 weeks, they've struggled a pretty good amount. PJ's been off and on too. So, but I like the prospects. I like what I'm seeing from those guys. Everybody's forgetting that PJ wasn't going to be the starter or K-Jack wasn't going to be the starter to start the year off. So I'd love to see, Caden Stearns work back into this and how things can really go. I think for us, it's really going to look at this next week. What players are we going to be willing to pay the money to come back? We're going to have an inside linebacker problem.
Yep.
Okay.
Standard.
Always have.
Yeah, but we talked about it at the beginning of the year. We're like, oh, it's not really that big of a problem. And this year, we're like, oh no.
It is.
For the record, I've always been on the inside linebacker has been a problem, but that's a whole nother story.
100%. And we didn't even see the guy that we drafted until the last 2
right.
Yep. Exactly. Good comments there. Humphreys, Little Jordan, great touchdown. And let's not forget part of that touchdown play, Jerry Jeudy throwing some blocks. You see that? I mean, that's a guy that, for all the crap I've given him this year, last year, I think last year was the business decision or whatever situation was where he just let the guy go and didn't put in a block. I don't know. But, he went out there and, he laid out a real good block that I don't think that touchdown would have happened if it hadn't been for him. So big, great play by Stidham to step up in the pocket, feel the pressure behind him, make that read, make that throw. And then everything else from that. That was a team play right there, and it was beautiful.
You're going to find out that one of that plays, one of my biggest beats last week. That pass went 12 yards, guys.
Yeah, it did.
To go 50.
Then he ran 44.
But he was open for the first down. It would even if he didn't get the touchdown, he's open for the first down. And we found him.
And that was a third down play.
We found a wide receiver on third down past the sticks.
We're going to get into this, Jared, because that one pass made Stidham's yardage go from 170 to 224.
I'm cool with that.
That's fine.
Those are Russell Wilson numbers.
Those are Russell Wilson numbers, but not Russell Wilson numbers and how much he's getting paid.
I'm telling you this.
It's true.
This is my biggest beef about it because Sean Payton came out and lied to us all. He lied to us. And you know why I say he lied to us? He came out and he's like, we're just making this move to give an offensive spark. Oh, what? There was no offensive spark.
No, I wouldn't say so. Minus that one drive, that one play. What else did we see that was like, okay, here's the Sean Payton offense that we've been waiting to see.
He's so bottled up.
Here's
right
what
now. So I'm gonna say two more things before I let Jared get after it. Oh, by the way, I switched back to my phone. So
good. So we're back to
the. Oh, you're gonna love this. Okay. So I had to go deep down into Spotty. I was like, why am I so upset about this offense right now? And I blame two people. Over the last 2 years, we had Peyton Manning and we had Nathaniel Hackett. We had the number one offense to show us what the ceiling can be. We also had the worst offense, what the floor can be. And I don't think we're that far over the floor, man. My issue with the amount of passes that are at the line of scrimmage is they're more or less an extension of the run game, right? And in this NFL, I feel like it's less about the run game opening up your pass game, but more that your pass game opens up your run game. And you can't be so one-sided and hope that's going to take you anywhere. I bet you if we looked at all of the playoff teams and, let's cut the wild cards out because it really doesn't matter. I guarantee you they're in the top half of the league for offense, and it's passing offense, not rushing offense. We know what Derrick Henry running for 2,000 yards for the Titans look like. It looks like a first-round exit. So I'm just sick and tired of us trying to hope that these pass plays that are at or behind the line of scrimmage, because I'm going to go ahead and tell you, Jared Stidham's 18 other passes outside of that Jordan Humphreys pass probably were like 3-4 yards at most downfield, and the others were behind the line of scrimmage. That Jerry Jeudy took one for like 12 yards. And we're like, hey, okay. Still not it. Still not it. There you go, Jared.
All right, no. Honestly, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with the offensive philosophy has been this year touchdown to check down, and we talked about that in the pregame podcast. We talked about it on a bunch of different things. That's the philosophy that this team has right now, and that has to change. Now, I don't know if it's something with people talk about limited offensive playbook with who we have, and I do believe we had a limited offensive playbook, maybe not fully limited, but with a first-year guy who hasn't gotten reps with the ones till now. And there's that aspect. But what I did see from Stidham, while not accurate, and this is kind of what you're expecting from a backup quarterback, he was looking upfield, and we were getting the ball in the middle of the field. We were getting the ball to receivers past 5 or 6 yards, which is opposite of, I think, what you saw. But I was looking at him, and there was incomplete passes, right? He was overthrowing a couple guys that were open, but he saw them open. And in my head, all I see is that he's seeing the field better. He's seeing the system with the guys that are supposed to be open, getting open faster than Russ ever did. And what we saw with Russ was touchdown to check down, which is 100% what his mentality was. We saw Jarrett Stidham step up in the pocket. We saw him rolling out, trying to find guys downfield. There was more passes to the middle of the field than I feel like I have ever seen. And some of them were late, right? There was the one where he almost, like, I think we mentioned it in the chat, like he's trying to get people killed because he saw the open receiver a little bit late and he got absolutely destroyed to get throwing the ball to him. But he's seeing it, right? And it just comes down to timing at that point, which makes me think, now, again, I'm not trying to blame anybody for the way our offense has been this year, but in general, if you can see the field, the system works, and you have to be able to find the open receiver. And I just don't feel like Russ was finding the open receiver, and Jarrett Stidham was at least seeing some of it. Now, again, not accurate in his passing, not accurate in his timing, but a lot of that comes down to just being a backup and a first-year guy in the system. I don't agree. I think someone said give him one more week with the starters, he'll be better. I don't think that's one more week isn't going to be the biggest game changer. No. But it gives me hope that if we do go out and get a young guy and play him in this, and he can see the field, that's why I've always loved it. I love Joe Burrow coming out of LSU when he came out of LSU because I loved Andrew Luck when he came out because he could see the field. It wasn't about being the best athlete or making plays with his feet. Shit, Peyton Manning couldn't run like a 5.8 40. Yeah. But he could see the field. He could see what was going on downfield and know where the open guy was going to be. And that's what we need. And I just don't think Russ has got a great deep arm on the outside. And then it was all the checkdowns. Yeah. And so what I saw from Stidham was a little bit more of the being able to see the open receiver in the system.
Yeah. No, I'll agree. You're not going to see anything majorly dynamically different from Stidham this next week. In fact, against a Chargers or a Raiders defense that has been pretty stout as of late. And that's something we'll talk about here soon. So that's going to be a challenge for him. But, I think this is I mean, that's kind of what I think you would see from Stidham no matter what. Like, he's a good backup. He's not starter caliber in the NFL. He might be the bridge guy that we use if we draft someone young, to let them sit behind Stidham for a little bit as they get adjusted to the speed of things. I don't know. But either way, Stidham is not the guy.
No.
Stidham's not the guy.
If we draft someone in the first round, he's going to be a starter week one.
He better.
He's going better.
We are dumb if we start anybody else but someone drafted in the first round.
Well, yeah, fair. But Stidham, one way or the other, is not the guy to do that with.
No.
So, if you think, hey, let's give him the whole off season and with, the ones and the preseason with the ones. And this is just Jarrett Stidham. I think this is just, he's not terrible, but he's not great in any capacity. He's going to have those misses. He almost threw a couple interceptions, right? That flea flicker where the Charger just couldn't pull it in. And I think if the Chargers have been maybe playing their A game with a much healthier team, one or two of those might have been picked off. I don't know. But the fact of the matter was it was an okay performance. And that's what you need from a guy who's a backup. You need a guy that can go out there and not be the reason you lose the game. And that's what Jarrett Stidham is. So I don't know. Really quickly, Joey, if I missed you, man, I was probably pre-gaming a little too hard. So I apologize you. I mean, I know I'm a big celebrity and everything. I have fans coming up left and right, just asking for autographs. It just becomes too much sometimes, so I'm sorry if I didn't get to you, but no, I'll check you next time for sure. So what other thoughts from this Chargers game? I mean, other than we saw what we saw some good things from some of the younger guys. Jaleel McLaughlin, really good performance there. 8 carries, 44 yards. He started the game, which was fantastic to see. I think he's earned that. Gave Javonte a little bit of a break there because I think we just have seen Javonte maybe looking more tired lately. But Jaleel McLaughlin has turned out to be a real good pickup for this team, guys.
Did we mention? I feel like we haven't talked about it. We're statistically eliminated due to what happened this weekend. So,
I wasn't going to say that out loud because I think we all knew it, but thanks, Spotty.
Hey, man.
I remember.
Just had to remind anybody if they had those hopes and dreams like we did 3 weeks ago that they got dashed. But it's fine. It's this again we have some tryouts for this next game, right? Where we're going to be in a little money trouble next year. So finding out what, just a little bit of money trouble next year. So finding out who's worth the ink on the paper is definitely going to be a good idea. So I'm still excited to see some of these young guys go ahead and play like they don't have another game to play because they might not.
Yeah.
That's really what this next week is all about, is just figuring out what we have for next year. And I think they know that. The Broncos, the whole team knows that. Of course. Oh, that's a new one.
Oh, that is
interesting.
I don't know how I did that.
That's a new one. Just do it again. Do the Rammies thing.
Yeah.
Now that you want to, but now I feel like I gotta rock out. No.
Remember the storm? I don't know if I can still do the storm.
It's only when you don't want it to happen.
Right. I'll figure it out for next year. No, I'll have a laptop, so it won't happen. Fan Appreciation Day.
Exactly.
Just try all of them out.
Really good segue there, Spotty. Fan Appreciation episode coming out end of January. This will be the 4th time we've done this, guys. So if you're watching right now and you want to win some free Broncos swag, some Orange Weekly swag, just have a good time hanging out with us. We're not really talking about football, but just hanging out with y'all, showing y'all our appreciation for you all tuning in and supporting us through liking the page, subscribing and sharing it, commenting, all of that stuff. Make sure you watch out. We'll be posting when we're going to be doing that. And come on and join and win some awesome Broncos swag. So not sure what the prizes are going to be yet this year, but it's going to be good.
And in the last couple of years, guys, we've had some pretty high members of the Broncos media on, like lots of great guest hosts. If you guys want to jump on and ask them some questions, we'll definitely have some more of those. And we'll finalize the lineup obviously here pretty soon and let you guys know. But we'll have some guests on, give away a bunch of stuff. It's a great time. It's a fun time.
Yeah, it'll be really good. We might even get, I don't know, maybe one of those little stuffed dolls of Jared, and we'll use that as one of the prizes. Yeah, since he's not here, we'll have him here, and then we'll auction him off or something at the end of the show. We'll see. But speaking of one more chance for these players to show what they got, they have a chance on the road in Vegas against the Raiders. And I don't even want to remember how many times we've lost to the Raiders in a row. But here we go, starting with Stidham. And the Raiders have definitely been playing like a team that they have absolutely nothing to lose. I mean, they were also eliminated this last week. But they have been playing lights out, especially on defense. So what are you guys maybe looking at for this game? Some of the matchups, any things that you're looking for, and what are your kind of maybe thoughts on it?
I got 2 words: Max Crosby.
Yeah.
Every single time we play the Raiders, he finds a way to absolutely destroy anything and everything that we try to get going. And if we can't control him, then we lose this game.
Fair.
I don't. Aiden. Well, the other 2 is Devontae Adams, because man had 172 yards and 2 touchdowns in this last game as well. So here's the hard part. I don't like this being on a losing streak against the Raiders.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's not 16 or 17 games, and we could get a higher draft pick by not winning. I know it's a classic, we don't really have anything to play for, but we do have something to play for kind of mentality. But I guess if the difference is spot number 9 versus 14, just saying.
Yeah. I know we talk about this a lot. We've mentioned this and however you feel about the Broncos as a team, but in general, I think that going above 500 for me, I don't know, it's that moral victory of finally having a season above 500 that kind of makes you feel good. But you're right, the difference between 9 and 14 might be the difference in who we can get in the draft. But I'm also out, and Spotty, you're an athlete too. I'm never rooting for a team to not play to their fullest potential. You know what I mean? I'm not rooting for a team to lose. I'm not rooting for them. I want them to win. I want to win above 500. And it's really kind of almost a win-win. We beat the Raiders. We finished above 500. Awesome. Love it. Going into the offseason, feeling good. We lose to the Raiders. Okay, that sucks. But okay, now we have a little bit of better chance and we have a lot more draft capital. It's kind of a win-win at this point. And we're just going to watch the final game. And that's the one thing I said last week during the tailgate. Unfortunately, it's going to be the final game of Broncos for a really long time. And I'm just going to want to enjoy it. I just want to enjoy a game of finally seeing the Broncos play one more time until the dark days,
Yep, exactly. Hey, Ken, I hear what you're saying, man, but what Jared's saying, and I completely agree. None of these guys go out there and play to lose. They're playing to win. They're playing, especially with some of the players on the Broncos that are going to have some playing time. They're going to be trying to make a name for themselves. If they get cut, they want to have some footage, some video of them, so that other teams can say, hey, we want this guy, right? So they're not just floating out there and maybe they don't get picked up at all, right? So they're going to go out there and do their best. But I do think it's a win-win for us in that regard. Hey, when we get a lower draft pick, but we finally beat the Raiders, end the season with a winning record, holy crap, that hasn't happened in 7 years, and then we can finally say, look, we beat the Chiefs, we beat the Raiders, we don't have to worry about those records hanging over us anymore. We can start fresh. We've seen some progress. Where is this team going with whoever we draft and however that looks? But then, let's say we lose. Okay, that really sucks. Now we have to hear more crap from the Raiders fans about, oh, you guys can't beat us, blah, blah, blah. But then we'd get a higher draft pick, right? And then, however that works out.
In decades.
Yeah, then we beat them. Yeah. So, but here's the other thing. I mean, I don't know if people care, because at this point, I think everybody just expects that this season's a wash. We're out of the playoffs. The season's whatever. How it ends up, no one's going to remember in 5 years.
We're out of the playoffs?
But damn it, Kev. But think about it this way. if we beat the Raiders, we finish number 2 in the AFC West.
Yeah.
Right. And we haven't done that in a while. So we got to think about that for a minute too. Like, do we want the moral victory of like, okay, we are a competitive team in the AFC West specifically, or is it just like let's take the loss, let's try to get that better draft pick so we can go forward? I don't think I'm going to say something that I'm going to probably end up regretting this, but I'll be gone for the next while. So you guys can talk crap all you want. I think that regardless of where we end up in the draft, Sean Payton and if he's still around, or Sean Payton and George Payton, if George Payton is still around, is going to go get the quarterback that they want. They probably already have an idea of which one it is, and they're going to find a way to go get it. I'd like to not trade draft capital to go get it or players to go get it, but they're going to go get the guy. If that's what's on their mind, they're going to go get it. So whether we finish draft 14th or draft 8th or 9th, you said, Spotty, I don't think is going to be as big of a deal. And I definitely don't want John, I hate you. Where are you?
It doesn't matter where he is. He's judging your takes. That's all.
It doesn't matter. So here's what I'll say. John is on the fence of just like scrap it, lose, forfeit. I think he talked to it in the chat. He said something about like send in a forfeiture note and let him know that we don't want to play this game because he doesn't want to watch any more Broncos football.
Yeah. John isn't really as big of a Broncos fan as you may seem. It's, kind of questionable, but we have him here anyway.
I think he enjoys drinking beer better than he likes watching the game, I just to go back to what Jared was saying real quick, one of the things I like about football, and I could be wrong, there could be some script or something out there, but I feel like it's one of those sports that no one really tries to tank. We've seen cases in the NFL. Last year was the Houston Texans, the last game of the season. They could have taken a knee or not kicked a field goal, and then they would have been able to have the number 1 overall pick, even though that ended up working out for them.
That worked out really well for them.
Yeah. There's the case of the Jets, winning their last game of the season to beat the Jaguars when they could have had the chance of getting Trevor Lawrence. I don't really think there are teams out there that are like, you know what? Call it a day, boys. You could smoke a cigarette in the locker room. You guys will be freaking fine. Like, I don't really think there's anything like that, especially because we've seen times. So I do believe what's going to get put out on the field are players who want to play. And on top of everything else, they have incentive to do so. I'm assuming a lot of them is involving tackles, sacks, yards, touchdowns, what have you. So the NFL incentivizes you to go out there and play your hardest. And I dig it, man. I think if we lose to the Raiders, it's probably just because for whatever reason in that time frame we got outcoached or we got outplayed.
Yeah.
Yep. For sure.
Ken, you make a really good point here. Unless you're around like the prison setting, you're probably not in here.
You just need to go to super, super divey bars. All right. I always find a Raiders fan in the darkest corner in there, drinking into fudge. For sure. And to go back, Sean, I see your comment here. Sorry you haven't been feeling well, bud. Glad you are on the mend and checking in with us. Glad to see you here. Okay, before we start wrapping up, guys, and maybe get some closing thoughts and whatnot, remember, once again, fan appreciation episode, end of January. It's going to be on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Just not sure what Tuesday yet. We'll coordinate that. We'll let you know who the guests are going to be. We'll let you know what some of the prizes are going to be. But all you have to do is show up and play whatever game we're playing. Whoever's giving away that prize, we'll be able to tell you how to do it, and we'll pick some winners. It's going to be some awesome, awesome fun times. You are not going to want to miss it. We're also going to be doing other offseason stuff, like a Super Bowl preview / Broncos season end wrap-up show. We'll also be doing stuff before free agency, after free agency, really kind of quiets down the draft as well. So I know it's a long offseason coming up ahead for us, guys, but Orange Weekly will be here. No BS. We're going to be here for you guys throughout the whole off season and pushing out content for you guys. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you are following us wherever, all the different socials and whatnot, and look out for the awesome things we have coming for you guys as we go into year 8 for us.
8 or 9. I forget how many.
8.
Oh, yeah, how many?
I think this is 8. I want to say this is 8. We'll check. Get out your abyss.
I think it's 8. I think it's 8. Yeah, it's 8. We're going into year.
We'll be going on. It's their 8th year. Spotty's 2nd year.
Yeah.
9th year.
You mean
we're going to our 9th year.
We're going into our 9th year. Perfect. Okay, so we're coming up on the big 1-0. Double digit.
Yeah.
Man, we're getting old. Okay. Spotty may not be the new guy for much longer. We'll see about that. There may be some stuff in the works, so that we have a fill in for Jared while he's gone. But yeah, here you go. Maybe I'll make several Jared dolls and I'll give those out just because we all love Jared. Yeah, Kim, one for you especially. I'll put that one aside. Glad you're watching. Let's see. So some more comments about the draft. Again, we're kind of running out of time here. Believe me, guys, we will be doing full draft breakdowns. We'll be live during the first round of the draft up through the Broncos pick. You guys are going to get plenty of draft coverage from us. So we'll save that for when I get smarter on it. But otherwise, guys, you got lots of good things here. So let's go to some closing thoughts and maybe throw in there who you think is going to go to the Super Bowl. Not necessarily win, but just who's going to go.
Well, but a week for these things to get figured out, right?
I think we can make some guesses as to who might make it to the Super Bowl. I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts. Jared, mostly because Jared, it's your last show. I can't ask you this after this. So
yeah, I guess so. So first thing I'll say, and you let it in pretty well. We've been doing this now coming up on 9 years. And we've seen some last 9 years, and all of you guys have been, diehards, and I absolutely love it. It's been a roller coaster, and it's been an awful roller coaster. The unfortunate part is the highs come until this year. The highs have come preseason when we were thinking that we traded all these people and we got these new guys that are going to be the change in it just didn't work out. And then the season comes around. We're like, where are we? Okay, so it's not that problem. It's this problem. Okay, it's not that problem. It's this problem. Oh, it's not that problem. It's this problem.
It's the first problem.
We've been doing that now for 9 years. And every year, too, at the end of the season, I remember the end of that Drew Lock season. He started 4 games. He was playing really well. We're like, we have our quarterback of the future. And that didn't work out well for us. So, like, all these things that we've had, it's just another bump in the road. We are still here. We're still diehard Bronco fans. We are still here for you guys to make sure that we're bringing you the best and most honest answers and most honest inputs that we can give. And I just absolutely love it. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you so much for following us for the past 9 years. It's been an absolute blast. Regardless of the roller coaster of the Broncos seasons, I absolutely love doing this. And I'm going to miss y'all. But I'll be back hopefully next season at some point during the next season. And I'll join in. So thank you guys so much.
Awesome. Love you, man.
Oh, and then Super Bowl pick. You want me to do Super Bowl pick right now? Yeah. I don't know about the AFC side or the NFC side. Right, that's kind of an up and I love San Francisco, but can they do it in prime time? Can they do it when it matters? I'm not sure. But I will say this: I think the Ravens are absolute shoo-ins, and I think if they play the way that they've been playing all year, then there's nobody that can beat them. Absolutely not. Lamar Jackson is playing the best football I've seen from a quarterback in a very long time. So there's no way that anybody's beating the Ravens. On the NFC side, I'm going to stick with probably San Francisco just because Christian McCaffrey is a cheat code.
Yeah, he kind of is. I like it, man. Body, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to save closing comments because I'm back next week, I think. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So
save your Super Bowl thoughts for next week then.
Okay. Well, I'm going to save that. But I will say that it's been a lot of fun for the first year, getting to know the guys and all the fans. So it has been a lot of fun and looking forward to year number 2 when I'm no longer a rookie. I don't have to hold your guys' jaws anymore.
It's true. You're lucky we had just gotten rid of the rookie haircut tradition before you joined. I'm just saying some of the things we did. You're lucky. Anything else, man?
Or
was that?
What else?
I just want to cut you off.
You know what? Actually, my last thing is that it was kind of go back what Jared said. Actually, I think this year in it specifically itself is almost exactly how all the other years have been. It was an incredible, ouch, this is not going to be the year. We're hurting. We're getting people are hurt. We're losing games. And it's like, bang, exciting football. We're excited. We're like, we're going to the Super Bowl. And everything else from that point was mediocre football. So that's actually been the last 10 years for the Broncos. We might as well just say 10 years, okay? Going from, it's hard to believe that almost exactly 10 years ago, the Broncos were the #1 offense in the NFL. In the same 10-year time frame, we have become one of the more mediocre offenses. But I also want to throw this out there that it definitely was Nathan Hackett. Okay, they're the 31st passing offense this year. Okay, 31st.
Yep.
Okay.
And if Aaron Rodgers was healthy, it would be. Well, yeah. He's one of those games that one of the 3 or 4 games that we definitely should have won.
A lot of turnovers.
And didn't.
They scored 31 points. They also returned a fumble for a touchdown at the end of the game. So let's not chalk it up because he created this amazing game plan. The Broncos really shot themselves in the foot.
That was a game we lost. They didn't really win. Yeah. We made sure we lost.
Yeah. And he's going to be college coach next year. So who's going to win out?
Right. The NFL wins. Got it.
I think so.
Hey guys, look, exactly right. Look, this was a really exciting Broncos season for a lot of different reasons. And we'll have to see what happens this next weekend. Sit back, enjoy the game, and just be happy we have one more game on before the season. Hopefully, we can walk away. I'm hoping we walk away with a win. I don't care about the draft in terms of the draft order. Like somebody else said, draft picks are never guarantees in terms of how they pan out. So I'd rather end with a winning season and maybe just a little, be able to hold our heads just a little higher going into next season, knowing that we finally broke some of those other long-standing records against us. So look, guys, it's always fun. You can count on us next week. Again, next week's going to be our last regular Tuesday night show for Bourbon Broncos and OBS. But just keep checking the Facebook, the YouTubes, all the other places, and we're putting out some information on all the other upcoming off-season activities we have for you guys as well. So, no, guys, I'm done talking. So I think there's nothing else to say other than end this as we always do on a very strong Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Take care, everyone. Happy New Year.
Do what I like, yeah, I do what I like, yeah, I do what I like. Sipping goose, if it's right, and I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, yeah, I go with the flow, cause I know I'm the show. In the zone, here I go, in the zone, here I go, in the zone, here I go, yeah, they know I'm a pro.